Welcome to Four Quarter Lives, a podcast exploring the profound impact of longer lives and careers on everything: countries, companies, couples, and careers. I'm Avivah Wittenberg-Cox, and for the last 12 weeks, we've been mapping what I've come to think of as one of the biggest and least understood shifts of our time: the emergence of what I call the new Q3, the third quarter of life. Today's episode is a little different. It's not an interview. It's not a recap of every conversation. It's an attempt to step back and look at the whole series from above. Because after 12 weeks of writing, interviewing, thinking, and discussing this topic, the question I keep coming back to isn't whether Q3 is real. I've been working on that question for years, and the evidence has only become stronger. The question is why something this large is still so poorly understood and studied. Looking back, the series almost organized itself into three movements: recognizing, understanding, then navigating. And each one addresses a different kind of blindness. The first one, recognizing, is a scale problem. So the first 4 weeks were about scale. Organizations are good at spotting problems that are loud, sudden, or small enough to sit inside a single department. The emergence of Q3 is none of those things. It's quiet, it's gradual, and it cuts across almost everything simultaneously: talent, customers, products, leadership, healthcare, housing, finance, and family life. What those first weeks established is that this isn't a workforce trend or a well-being initiative. It's closer to a tectonic shift, the kind that doesn't announce itself with a dramatic event, but quietly changes which assumptions still make sense. Sarah Lawrence Lightfoot's idea of a third chapter gave us one of the clearest ways of naming what's actually new here. Not an extension of midlife, not a waiting room before old age, but a genuinely distinct life phase with its own opportunities, questions, and transitions. One of my biggest takeaways from this section was realizing how easy it is to recognize Q3 intellectually while continuing to design everything as though it doesn't exist. Recognition only matters when it becomes structural. Then part 2, understanding, the human complexity. The middle 4 weeks moved beneath the demographic story and into what's actually happening inside people. This is where we explored the 4 L's: leaving, looking, loving, and leaping. If I'm honest, this was part of the series that became the most personal. Because once you've moved beyond longevity statistics, you find yourself in the territory of identity. Herminia Ibarra's work on leaving helped explain something I've observed repeatedly among people in their 50s and 60s. Organizations reward continuity, but human beings evolve. People aren't shedding old identities because something has gone wrong. Often, they're doing it because something's gone right. They've achieved what they set out to achieve. They've become who they thought they wanted to become. And now they're asking a new question: what's next? Chip Conley's work on looking reframed the in-between period for me. We often treat uncertainty as a temporary inconvenience. Chip argues that it is the work. The searching, questioning, and experimenting aren't delays before the real transition. They are the transition. And Richard Leider's enduring question, "What's your life for?" landed differently after several weeks spent exploring this territory. The challenge here is that almost none of this shows up on a dashboard. You can't measure leaving. You can't quantify looking. And there's no KPI for loving or leaping. Yet these invisible transitions may be the most important thing happening to many of the most experienced people in our organizations. Finally, navigating and the design problem. The final 4 weeks turned outward again, but by then we could no longer separate the personal from the structural. Helen Tupper's work on squiggly careers gave us a new architecture, careers that move sideways, diagonally, and creatively, rather than simply straight and upwards. Jennifer Petriglieri brought an insight I hadn't fully appreciated when I invited her into the podcast. No one navigates Q3 alone. Every transition we experience personally is often being experienced simultaneously by somebody sitting across the breakfast table. Couples are key to that Q3 conversation. Then came Dr. Milam Hayes at 82, challenging perhaps the deepest assumption of all, that aging is inevitably a story of decline. And finally, we turn to the market implications. The same people we've been discussing as employees are also consumers. In fact, they are increasingly the dominant segment of consumers. Longer lives are reshaping both sides of the economy at once, the workforce and the marketplace. The challenge of this final phase is that navigation requires holding two truths simultaneously. Treat Q3 purely as a workforce issue, and you lose the humanity that makes the conversation matter. Treat it purely as a personal journey, and you give institutions permission to ignore it. The real work lies in holding both perspectives together. So that's the map: recognizing, understanding, and navigating the new Q3. 3 different forms of not seeing addressed in sequence. If there's one thing these 12 weeks have clarified for me, it's this. Q3 isn't difficult because the evidence is unclear. The evidence is overwhelming. What's difficult is that Q3 sits at the intersection of things we traditionally kept separate: talent and customers, work and life, strategy and identity, career planning and relationships. Organizations like silos, human lives don't, and longevity is forcing those worlds back together. What surprised me most during this series isn't the emergence of Q3 itself. It's how many people have written to say some version of the same thing. I thought I was the only one. You're not. In fact, you're one of the largest social transitions in modern history, and we're only just beginning to understand it. The series may be ending, but the work certainly isn't. These essays are becoming a book, the conversations will continue, and the map will keep evolving as millions of people create this new life stage in real time. Thanks for joining me on the journey. You can find all 12 episodes and their companion essays in the archive at Elderberries. I'm Avivah Wittenberg-Cox, and we are living our 4-quarter lives. For more thinking about the impact of our 4-quarter lives, you can read my column at Forbes and subscribe to my Elderberries newsletter on Substack. Let's design lives that aren't just longer, but better.